Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another stock market outlook video brought to you by DeepView. As always, we're going to run through the market indexes, leading groups and themes, as well as particular stocks of note. This is definitely going to be an interesting one. We had a strong move last week, retaking the 21 EMA that I definitely want to dive into. And of course, we've had some news events that could impact things next week. So stick around until the end. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know your thoughts on the market. And if you do find my analysis helpful, please go ahead and take the time to leave me a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And with that said, let's dive right in. So starting with the QQQ, the NASDAQ 100 ETF, let's kind of set the stage here. We've had a very strong move up last year, nice consolidation base to end out last year, powerful move up. And now for the most part this year, we didn't quite have a Santa rally. We pulled back very sharply below the 21 EMA. And then last week, we popped back through it strongly starting on Jan 8, Monday. And then we had constructive action to end out last week. We're back above a rising 21 EMA. We remain above a rising 50 SMA and 200 SMA. So pretty much on all time frames, the trend is up. However, we are approaching this prior level. So potentially some sellers might come in at this point. We've seen, the market stagnate a little bit the past few days. And, taking a look at this sharp rally up, I wouldn't mind to see some chop move sideways to consolidate a little bit, maybe one more pullback to that 21 EMA and then potentially try for a breakout through these levels. But as of right now, this is pretty sharp here. Some rest would be warranted, but things look pretty strong and individual stock wise. Things look pretty good as well, especially from kind of the big caps and the more powerful, more liquid growth stocks like NVDA, CrowdStrike. We'll dive into those names later on in the video. Bringing up the IWO, this kind of gives you a sense of the smaller caps. And this looks weaker than the NASDAQ 100, the QQQ for sure. We've pretty much gone sideways over the past 2 weeks. We tried to move up here Monday with the QQQ, but we didn't really see any follow through from this move upward. Instead, we've kind of leaked below the 21 EMA. On this Friday, we had a gap up, but we didn't push higher. Instead, it was a downside reversal back below the 21 EMA. So this kind of gives you a sense that, this represents, the Russell is more like 2,000 stocks versus the NASDAQ, which is just the biggest 100. So the smaller cap names are struggling and haven't quite seen the nice follow through that we've seen from the big cap stocks. We'll take a look at, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple in just a minute. Those have been performing pretty well, but the smaller cap names, especially the smaller cap growth, have struggled a little bit to really push higher even after this nice bar here on Monday. And putting this recent action in perspective, you can see that we tried to move higher and really break past these highs, but instead we failed that, pulled back hard to that 21 EMA, and as we've mentioned, kind of are stagnating over the past few weeks. So, from a big cap perspective, look at the Qs, things look pretty good, but from the smaller caps, there's not as much breadth, there's not as much participation, even though they are above, that longer term 50 SMA. If we go back to the IWO, you can see we're above a rising 50 SMA, above that 200-day moving average, but just not as strong as those big cap names. And speaking of which, we're just going to dive right in with this theme. This has been working, starting with NVIDIA, which has finally emerged from, this base since, that's been in since really July and really hasn't made any progress since, all the way back here. Really, since this gap up, it hasn't progressed too much, but this was a constructive base. You can see from highs, this pullback was about 20%, which is pretty tight considering the prior move that it had. And we had a powerful breakout, through these highs. It was a daily and weekly and monthly pivot. That's why it had so much power. And you can see the pickup in volume, really textbook, exactly what you want to see. We didn't have, much of a contraction here, just kind of pushed higher off that 21 EMA. But this definitely was, the play for last week. Really nice move. And now it's kind of gone tight here, up here. Wouldn't mind to see some pullback. That would be constructive, and just looking to form higher highs and higher lows from this point on. If you missed it, on the pullback, if it does kind of flag out sideways, maybe, a retest of that 21 EMA or a shorter time frame moving average like the 10-day, you can go ahead and look to pick up some shares on that higher low formation whenever it does present one. But really nice action, textbook action, and a great breakout to study for sure. AMD, its kind of sister stock in the semiconductor space, isn't quite as strong. You can see it also had a nice push up higher last week, but has pretty much treaded water the past few days. Upside reversal on this day, inside day to end out last week. We'll see which way this resolves itself, but just isn't quite as strong as NVIDIA. And the NVIDIA chart looks like it's just kind of getting started from that breakout. This has already had a powerful move here, and wouldn't mind to see some chop sideways and, 1-2 more weeks sideways before it tries to break out through this level. But certainly from this inside day, we could break out of that daily pivot and continue higher and just kind of reconfirm through these highs. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. You can see not huge volume on these red bars, so it looks constructive as of this point. A few other names in the semi space are acting well. We've got Marvel pushing up higher, AVGO, let me bring up that. Also acting well, a really strong action here. So the entire semiconductor name and theme is definitely one that I'm watching, and NVIDIA is the leader. It kind of retook that. AMD was kind of at the reins for a few months there as NVIDIA was basing, but right now we've got NVIDIA back as the leader of the pack. Another theme worth watching, but not nearly as strong, is the crypto names. Bringing up Coinbase. Obviously, we had the release of, finally the Bitcoin ETFs, and it pretty much was a sell the news event with a lot of downside reversals, fall through to the downside. We're back at the 50 SMA right now. So if we see, basically, if we can find some support here, base out, but this kind of is in a down cycle as of this moment. Strong move down, short-term flag, reconfirmation to the downside, drop to the 50-day, and we'll see if this can hold, but just needs to base out, and maybe it does, maybe it sets up again. Definitely keep an eye on this because this theme can be explosive and trend really nicely as we saw, but this looks like the left-hand side of a base to me. Also bringing up Mara. Very similar action, was forming a tight area after our initial move down, and then an ugly downside reversal and fall through to the downside with room still to that 50 SMA. That also lines up with kind of these highs of this mini structure. So you've got a little bit of confluence if it does drop all the way down to 16.5 or so near that 50-day moving average. But you saw the highest volume throughout this move on this downside reversal. So for me, looks like it needs a little bit of time, and this is a wild stock. You got to treat this a little bit differently just because it can move so fast. Coin is a little bit more of a steady mover. Less surprises there, but obviously, this theme in and of itself has a lot of potential, but with potential often comes that volatility. So that's another theme to keep an eye on. Another one I want to focus on is the cybersecurity theme. This really, started back in this area with crowd as it formed this nice base, gapped up. This is where, Zscaler is acting well. CYBR, Cyber also is acting well, but CrowdStrike really has been performing and has been the stock to have. You can see, during this pullback, went really tight in here, just edged above that 21 EMA, right above that inside day. And then this Monday, we had a gap and go, very strong action and continuation up, a little bit of a downside reversal on Friday, but this action is kind of normal after a very strong move up here, and is very typical. Wouldn't mind to see some basing, just form higher highs and higher lows as it did throughout this prior move. So nice action here. I think NVIDIA and CrowdStrike are kind of the top can slim quality names as of this moment, and just bringing up the earnings and sales. You can see acceleration a few quarters ago, triple digit growth in terms of earnings, sales up 35%, great estimates as well. And we can, go out here. You can see the estimates, very, very strong growth, re-acceleration here. So, this is a theme that's definitely worth keeping an eye on, even as this forms more and more bases. Coming back to the mega cap theme, Microsoft has been acting really nicely, pushing through this early entry here on this day, the 10th. You had a nice move up here off the 50 SMA. You can see how tight it got in here. You can also see that from the RMV going to zero, relative measured volatility, and then nice push up, and then really nice push through this level and continuation up to end out last week. So nice action from the mega caps. Bringing up Amazon, this one also participating here. You can see a nice move up, a little bit of hesitation inside day, but these are above their moving averages. You got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And lastly, we've got Apple. This is, definitely the weakest of the med caps. We've got this unfilled gap down, potential bear flag here, but, is still holding that 200-day moving average and just setting up this kind of larger base. So we'll see how it progresses from this point. I'd love to see it kind of retake that 21 EMA, fill this gap, and make its way back towards all-time highs. So that's pretty much a run through of some of the key themes I'm watching. We've got the mega caps, we've got semiconductors, crypto. That theme is kind of falling off. Cybersecurity, definitely one to be focused on. You've got a few names in there: Zscaler, Cyber. You've got Sentinel-1 S as well as of course CrowdStrike that we took a look at. So I do want to run through a few names from my previous watch list. We've also, of course, got the biotech theme that's been active. VKTX is one I've been watching. Really nice move last week, and now tying up here. Twist as well is an interesting one because it actually has sales and some numbers here. Not many of these do. This is still kind of forming out this mini base, but a nice upside reversal off that 21 EMA. Not a great close on Friday, but holding tight here. We'll see how this progresses. Metsi, the coal names have been acting well, moving up these lows. I just like how this trades. Look at this nice clean, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. And also the home builders is also a theme that has been super strong in here and now is kind of basing out. So those are a few other areas to keep an eye on. Duolingo, a lot of people I know are watching this. The app teaching you different languages is very, very popular, but we're still just kind of holding and riding that 50-day moving average. It's tight below that 21 EMA and squeezed between that and the 50. So maybe it pops through next week. This could be potentially actionable, but still hasn't done too much. But I do like how it's holding that high volume close right there. We've got Affirm as well, just kind of basing out. Not the strongest action these few days, especially when other names were kind of ripping. But we'll have to see how it acts versus this level, if it can kind of push higher off these lows or if it kind of breaks lower after it moves through, this January 5 low. So that's pretty much it. Also, LLY in the pharma biotech area acting really nicely. You added kind of gap and go here. Nice pop through the moving averages on this day. This is kind of the optimal buy point here, and just watching to see if it can cross back and continue to make higher highs and higher lows. But that's pretty much it for what I want to cover today. There's a lot of news out there, a lot of noise, but what kind of is true is that the mega caps are acting well. You have many different themes working or setting up in bases, and we'll just have to see how everything plays out. Yeah, I hope you guys found this helpful. Let me know your thoughts on the market down below. What stocks are you watching as well? And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a like down below if you did. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.